So
hello and welcome to Breaking the Cycle to Step Forward, and today's title is Finding Your Voice Through Writing. And can you believe we're at episode 16?
I know, banking them, aren't we now?
We are. I'm Beverley Ann, and I'm also joined by
Chris Tuck. Hi everyone.
Hello, but you know who we are by now anyway. And if this is your first podcast that you've come across, please go back to the beginning and you can find out about other topics that we've spoken about. So today's title in Finding Your Voice Through Writing, you know, we've been talking about this and we've got different conversations. Any thoughts you want to start with yourself, Chris?
I just think that finding your voice can be life-changing. It can break the silence, it can break the chains, it can break the cycle, whatever phrase you want to use. But often people can't verbalize for themselves what is going on. Their head is just spinning with so much stuff. And it's about just taking all of that. If you can't verbalize, if you can't offload, taking it out of your head, taking it out of your voice box, literally, and putting it down on paper or digitally, just offloading and writing it down so that you can just breathe. So that's what it is for me. What is it for you?
Well, it is all of that now, but it's been challenging. And so it's good that we have this conversation, because we hear this and some people are like, yeah, and other people are like, no. And I've always been like, no. And that goes back to when I was a teenager. So as a teenager, I was lucky to be fostered at 15. I was fostered by my English teacher with all good intentions. So, however, she was also, she was my English teacher at school. And I remember there was a time before I was fostered by her. It was going through a very tricky time. I was in children's home, etc. Different things happened with the family. And I wrote this essay of 500 words. I was so proud to get it done with all the confusion, chaos and everything happening in my own life. So to get this done and completed on time for homework, I was really proud to get it done. But then when it came back with a big C- in red, that was the first example or the first message that came to me, like, oh, but you asked this question, that's what I put. And when she explained further about what she wanted, okay, I can see now as an adult, to another adult, it wasn't quite what she wanted. But as a child,
yeah,
I'd done the best that I could do.
Your little masterpiece.
Yes. And then when I did go and live with her, and I'm not saying she did it in a horrible way, it's just how we receive it as children and our messages. And then when I did go and live with her, I kept a diary. I was 15, kept a diary, who I fancied, who I didn't.
As you do.
Yeah, that, you know, when I wasn't allowed to go to this place, and you know, and I've always been a person is, don't just tell me no, tell me why. Do you see what I mean? Or as I have done in some of my own writings, and I can share this, is don't tell me, ask me.
Yeah.
And I was sometimes told you can't do that, and I'd been going there for a year. You can't go there anymore, but know why. So I did what most teenagers do. I said that I was going to a friend's and went to the youth club, and of course, and put that all in this diary, and so it got found.
Oh no.
And then I was called lots of different names, which only compounded how I was personally feeling. So the adult who did it, I'm not blaming. I'm not blaming her. She had her own fears and she was trying to do her best by me. Do you see what I mean?
Probably tried to safeguard you, Beverley, at the time.
In the only way she knows how. Like, you know, as parents, because parents come in different roles. That's true. She didn't mean it against me personally. However, as a teenager, I felt that it was an intrusion into my privacy.
Absolutely.
And that stopped me writing.
Right,
for
because you're
years.
scared of people finding and intruding, and the trust was broken again there, wasn't it, I suppose?
Yeah, and the judgment,
Yeah, oh
you know,
God, yeah,
judgment, you know, and then being called names. So not just,
right.
you know,
I can imagine not nice names.
no. And when you're
Hmm.
already feeling, you know,
Yeah,
unworthy and all the rest of it, that
yeah.
only compounds it more. So they're the
Mm,
kind of messages I had. Needless to say, the relationship broke down hugely, and that's when I moved
yeah,
out.
right.
So for me, years later, when I did start having therapy, etc., I had a wonderful book, The Courage to Heal, and I do have an old copy now. It's not in print anymore, but it's about lots of different stories of survivors, and I use that. It's like my Bible, my counsellor.
Right,
It was like,
okay.
oh, there's other people that have been in
Hmm.
my position. And so I did start to write. I wrote a letter to my dad, and I wrote lots of different things, but always on little bits of paper
Right.
and never in one. And ironically, if I do that, if I write now, I don't have just one place that I write. I still write, but it'll be in lots of different books and they're in different places.
And do you think that is as a direct result of what happened with your caregiver at the time?
Absolutely.
Right.
So, and I'm aware of it. So this is why we like having these conversations, because we know the professional side, but then we also know our personal side. We're human
Yeah.
beings. So I've always wanted to write a book, and I will do it, but I'm also aware of the cost to me personally. So I want to be able to break it up, because it's like anything. Self-care is the most important thing that we talk about that, but then it's about accepting what's right for us.
Yes.
And that's why we wanted to talk about this writing, because I don't know about you, Chris, when I first heard about journaling, about writing out your thoughts and feelings, I really thought that I had to write out an essay, because
Yeah, and it all had to be grammatically correct, and yeah, and what do you put in it? Do you put those innermost thoughts? Because like you just said, the judgment, if someone comes across it, how is it going to be received? How am I going to be perceived?
yeah, yeah. So I started off with just putting words sometimes. You know, when I was learning to check in with myself, anger. What is it? Well, I don't know. It's anger. So,
I just feel that. I feel anger. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Happiness. What does that feel like? I don't know. Happiness. But it was over the years adding to it. And then when I was asked to write a letter to my younger self, I couldn't do that. I didn't know how to be that young person. She was giving me
Yeah.
an age. I didn't know how to be that child. I only knew how to be a carer of everyone else. So what I did then, I pulled out sentences that I'd heard other people say to me. So like my mum, my dad, my foster mum, you know, at school being bullied, different things like that. And I pulled the sentences out, and that's when I wrote that poem, Don't Tell Me,
We're
Ask Me.
breaking up a little bit. Sorry. I can barely hear you.
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Okay, brilliant. I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I love about Zoom. So it starts off with don't tell me to stop crying. Ask me why I am.
Yeah.
Don't shout at me when you're angry. Ask me when you're calmer. And it's something I wrote years and years ago, and I now share for people, you know, if when they're stuck sometimes, because that just came out of nowhere. And now I've gone on even more, whereas I use colour when I'm writing. So if I'm angry, I'll write anger in the colour red. And I know we've had this discussion before, but that then helps me feel that colour red that I'm feeling inside, and then write more about how I feel, but not necessarily in sentences.
So you literally connect the color to your mood, the emotion, to get it out and to be able to describe it a bit more. Yeah, I can
Yes.
see that. I can see how that works. But for other people, that might help them. But they could literally, as you said, just brainstorm, just get the words or the emotions out on paper. Victims and survivors who have written blogs, that's probably an end goal for many people. Or they could literally, as you said, just write letters, and they could either give those letters to people, or it could just be for their own personal journey, their own personal therapy, and then they could burn or rip up or
God, yes,
or stab.
Yeah,
Whatever emotion they're feeling, it's quite okay to do what they need to do to that written work that they've done.
absolutely. And this is something, when you do it in letters and put them in envelopes, I remember buying my daughter a writing kit when we got divorced and we'd moved house. So you don't know what's going on so much, and I wanted her to have an outlet. So I bought her a writing set, and she used to write letters. I mean, she used to write them to me as mum as well.
Interesting.
And I kept quite a lot of them in different ways, and not always ones that are really nice. But
Yeah.
I'm glad she was able to get it out. But that helped her, and she wrote letters to me. She wrote letters to her dad. If she fell out with a friend, she wrote letters to a friend, but she didn't necessarily send them.
You didn't send them, did you say?
She didn't. Yeah, she didn't necessarily send them.
Yeah. So
But
that can be a way of expressing yourself to the person that's caused you harm, as part of your therapy, part of your healing, but you just do with it what you want, what you see fit. So I've got, as part of the therapy that I'm undertaking at the moment, I've what I do, I use my phone and I write into the notepad of it, or I speak it and get it translated into text.
Yeah.
And then I will print it out, and then I took it into therapy with me. And because sometimes when I'm in my emotional self, I'm not in my thinking brain, I'm in my emotional brain, so I can't express what I want to in therapy. So when I've got it already, and I will literally sit there and read it out to her, explore all of that, and explain how you're feeling when you're in a place of not non-emotion, because when you're writing it, you're very emotional, but you do it all in your own time. And then in that hour of therapy, you've already prepared it, you're ready to go, you're ready to rock and roll, and then I can just speak it, and then we can have those discussions afterwards. So it's a really good tool for me, the way that I've explained that, to help me move on with stuff.
absolutely. But even as an adult, I sometimes, I look back over the time now, when something's happened between me and another person, and like you, when you're in that emotional place, you can't get it out effectively, or you try and you just get frustrated, or you're in an emotional state, they're in an emotional state, and it's not being received in the right way.
Yeah.
And that's that's from both sides. So I like to sometimes wait for it to calm down emotionally, and then write a letter. That one I'm very aware of, and I will often type that, not because I don't mean it, but it means I can revisit it and really have clarity. What is it I'm trying to say? And put some love in there as well. So, it's okay to say, yeah, I did feel angry. I felt frustrated, not necessarily at you. I felt frustrated at the situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But it enables that person then to receive it, and then to keep reading it.
Yeah. And I think another way that this can be advantageous for people just generally in life, if they start using writing when there's an upset or a miscommunication, is that often when you write an email and you're really emotional and you feel really angry or really passionate, is that you write exactly what you want to in the first email, do not send it. You then revisit it when you've calmed down a bit, and you can start taking maybe the swear words out of it, and you can start putting it into context, and you can start probably seeing it from the other person's side of it, and you can soften it all out. If it needs to happen, you can soften it all out, and then you can end up sending the email that you really want to send, not the angry version of it. But of course, if there's an angry version that you want to send, then please feel free. But don't do it in haste. Don't do nothing in haste. Always do first, and then revisit it, change it, and then send the final version that you actually want to send and that you want a response to.
Absolutely, because the thing is, and we also know that you can have one thing happen, but all depending where you're standing, you see it from a different viewpoint. That doesn't mean to say you're wrong.
All right, in some cases.
Yeah, but it's how you've received it.
Yeah.
So absolutely, and I've done that many a time. In fact, I don't put the email, if I'm applying and it's angry, I take out the email address. I do that.
Good idea.
I think there's also another point.
I have sent an email in the past when I didn't mean to, and it had lots of ramifications, so I learnt my lesson.
One of the things we just also want to make clear as well, and it was something that you brought up, which is really important about anything that you write down, because if you're keeping a diary, for instance, if you're keeping a diary when you're a child and there's lots of information in there, if you do go to the police at any time, that is considered evidence if you share that. So that
if you disclose it to them,
if you disclose it. So that's something to be considered, and that's people's choices. Yeah,
just to be aware of, at the same time, if you have documented exactly what's happening to you, that obviously would be brilliant evidence, because it's you might have dated it, you might have done whatever, and you might have literally been really explicit about what's happening. That's gold dust as evidence. Yeah. But on the same time, say like you've kept those diaries all of your childhood, and then you've become a teenager, and then I don't know, for some reason you've sexually acted out, as in you've had lots of relationships, but that's just another way of coping. That could then be used against you. Yeah. So you really have to be careful about or mindful of, if you did go to the police and disclose, you might have all of this wonderful evidence, but then there might be stuff that you've written down that could be used against you. It shouldn't be allowed to happen, but it does happen. It has happened. So in the future, it shouldn't happen, but just be aware.
And that's we wanted to raise that, because that's important.
Just wanted to raise it,
because as I feel with judgment, it's like when I'm studying, I've got another module to submit on Wednesday. I fill everything out and then I go back over it and back over it, because there's that fear of judgment. I like to say that I passed with my first one.
Yeah.
But it's still there. But it's also that it can also there be in a different way in a court of law. So be mindful. So what benefits then, Chris, do you get out of releasing it by writing, and how do you do it?
I think I've shared it already, but just to explain again, I think that I've got so much going on, and it sort of like doesn't come out coherently when I speak it. I get muddled, I get emotional, things might not, and I like things logical. That's how I like things. So when I'm able to write or speak into the text thing that puts it into writing, I'm able then to sort of like look at it, revisit it, and put it into a timeline or a more logical way for me. And often when I do public speaking, again, I can go off track, because that's where the brain takes you. And if I need to be focused, or if I need to have certain key things that I need to speak about, I will just dump, revisit, put it into some kind of logical sense, and make sure that I'm covering the key messages that I need to get across. And I do that for whatever. So if it's an essay, if it's a public speaking event, if it's just me wanting to get my brain into some kind of order and gear, So it enables me to do all of that. Writing it down enables me to do all of that. So I find it really powerful.
Yeah, and thank you, because I asked the question in a slightly wrong way, because you'd already said some of it, but you've also elaborated on that. So
Exactly.
thank you.
So that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
What about yourself?
As I said, I have different books, but I also do it through colouring. You've actually witnessed that. Do you remember when we were on the train and we were going up
Yeah.
to Manchester, and we were doing a film or show? The film was being premiered, and it was our different stories.
Yes.
So it was an exciting time, but it was huge emotionally and a huge step in our recovery. So I had, and I still have them, I have colouring books, and I use my pens. But before I start colouring, I start writing different words about how I'm feeling in the colouring pens, and then I start colouring in a picture. And then I get the other pens, the other colours on. Once I've released that, how I feel. So like fear, once you release fear, once you understand it, then after that, it's like, well, I've let go of that. So what's there? Actually, there's excitement there. Okay, what colour am I going to use for excitement? And I do it like that. And then I start colouring in my picture. So when I get a picture, it helps me visually see, oh yeah, that's when I was feeling angry. That's when I was feeling scared. But overall, look, I still went forward. And it's just something, I'm a very visual person. So it enables me to use the writing, but in a way that has worked for me in the past. And then other times, I'll just write in a book or on my laptop. And like you said, I just dump it and take bits from it as I need to.
And I think it's the release, as you say, whether it be colouring, whether it be writing words, or people use those mind maps, don't they? Whatever it is, it's just a way to just get all of that out of your system so that you can literally breathe, think, and move on.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of expressing yourself. So as we've said before, lots of people do art therapy for that, don't they? Some people like making things, like making clothes, drawing pictures, painting pictures, abstract
Music.
art. Whatever it is you need to do to express yourself, that is what you need to do for you.
And I think there's also taking it from your head and just doing it from your heart. And when I say it like that, that's not woo-woo, but we've got the conscious part, the thinking part, and we've got the subconscious, the deep subconscious, and we're trying to access that, because that's where those voices are, you know.
And the pain that we talked about last week.
So in our head, it's like, I can do that. And then we get that little message, can we? Am I good enough? Can I really do that? So when we
those little gremlins.
Exactly. So when we sit down or stand up, because sometimes I stand up to do this as well, because I do it on big paper. When we're ready to do that, it's not about thinking about how you should be doing it. It's just thinking about, but also what's right for you.
Yeah.
So if you've only written down one word and then you need to walk away, walk away.
Yeah.
Put another word another time. But don't feel that just because somebody's able to write pages, oh, I can't write a whole page, I can't do it. No, it's not like that. And I really want to bring it back to that simple part. Do it what's right for you. So it may be that you leave a piece of paper out or a book somewhere and you put one word in it. That's your start. And then another time you might go back to it and put another word.
Yeah. So let's go back to writing a book. When I wrote my book in 2012 through a ghostwriter, because I had all of the stuff going on, so I couldn't, I was too angry and too emotional to actually put pen to paper to finish it. It was stopping me. The unheard voices and all the suppressed harm, it was stopping me putting pen to paper. So I did it through a ghostwriter, and I self-published because we hadn't got a conviction. We hadn't, we couldn't name and shame because of, what's it called? see my brain's gone. See, if you don't write it down, you don't think about what you're saying,
It's
this is what happens.
It's
Yeah,
libel.
libel cases. That's it. Defamation of character is the word I was looking for. You have to be really careful if you haven't got conviction, like we haven't, that you can't just name people, because they could come after you and your assets potentially. In our case, so we changed it to stepmom, stepdad, mum, dad, whatever. So it couldn't be jigsawed together. But we also thought as a family that if anyone wanted to come after us and take us to court, bring it on, because we'd love to see you in court. Yeah. But people just need to be aware of all of that. If you do have a conviction, you can go to town, you can get a publishing deal, there's so many different avenues out there to help you do that. But there are so many survivor books now, and I'm not saying that to put anybody off, because everyone has the right to share their story, their lived experiences any way they want. But it isn't the only way, is what I'm saying. Do not feel pressured that you have got to do that. And also, many people think that it's a way to make money, and it just isn't. It just doesn't. What it does, and some people say it makes you an expert. Well, it doesn't.
No.
And some people say it opens doors for you, and it just doesn't, because so many people are doing it now. You're the expert in your own life, absolutely, 100%. You're the expert in your recovery, what's worked for you, what hasn't, yeah, 100%. But what it does for me is it's it helps others. It helps Victor. You've got to take away from it is money. Without a publishing deal, I can guarantee you it won't. It's going to cost you money, and it is cathartic to do, but it also can be quite, not damaging, but quite upsetting for you to go through. So just have your eyes wide open is what I'm saying. That's
absolutely. And that's something, why do I want to write my book? I want to write my book because I personally, where I was under social care, etc., I asked for all my notes.
Yes.
I was under a court order for 14 years, lived in 2 different children's homes, foster home, and then hostel. And the papers I got back are tiny. So for me, it's a personal memoir. And I say when, because I haven't given my son a time, when it's put together, if it helps another person to see, because I want to balance mine with some other, some helping tools as well. So, it's not about what it will bring in, it's about what's right for me. And I think the person that inspires me most there is books like Anne Frank's diary.
Yes.
A Child Called It. Did you ever read that?
Yeah, I read all of the David's books.
Yes, and I liked how it was broken down. And what's amazing is when you read his books, and I don't know if anybody's realised this, like his very first book, the way it's written, you can hear it's being written as a child. And it's actually very natural when you go back to your childhood to do that without even thinking. That's why when you get hypnotized, not that I've ever liked this personally, when you get hypnotized, if you're asked questions as a child, you'll respond in your child way.
I was just trying to remember his name, David Pelsar, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So
see, my brain forgets a lot of stuff until I need to recall it, and then all of a sudden I'm going, oh, what? Yes, there it is. It's in there somewhere.
It's in there, in those filing cabinets.
Yeah,
right, we're coming up to 30 minutes now. Really quickly,
quick, didn't it? Yeah.
So, what are your last thoughts about writing, Chris? Any little tip that you'd like to give to anyone?
I think that if anybody is in that tumbleweed or that washing machine, part of their brain is just going round and round and round, they can't sleep very well, but writing really frightens them, to just revisit it in the way that we've explained, whatever it is that works for them, but give it another go. And even try that text to written speech software on their phones or on their laptops, if they can't physically write. Because I know some victim and survivors can't read, can't write, and no judgment, but there is a way that they can get that help and release some of the stuff that might be going on for them and keeping them stuck. So just to go and explore what would work for them, and give us feedback. We might have missed some. What works for you?
Absolutely. Well, for me, I know that I like being outside, and this was years ago as well, and I still do it at different times. I like going outside. So if someone's at the beginning, another idea is being outside in the garden, in the middle of field, somewhere private, and having your pens and writing words that they want, just words, nothing else, or using note sticks, because they can get it out if they want. They can draw pictures if they can't read and write, just draw pictures. But then they can choose, when they've completed it, to either keep it.
Notes.
Oh, I know. I know what I mean.
I know what you
These
mean
little
as
things.
well.
These little things.
Yeah.
And I've got them all over.
Note sticks, everyone.
Note sticks. That's it. And you can burn it. You can keep it. You can roll it up and carry on doing it another time. But just do what's right for you. You absolutely 100%. Yeah. All right then. So we are going to bring this podcast to an end. Sorry if there's been any blips throughout. You know, I'm in the garden. Zoom and Wi-Fi will challenge us always, but we have brought you a podcast full of golden nuggets, and we would love to hear from you on this podcast, on previous podcasts, and any future discussions that you would like Beverley and I to have on your behalf. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. And goodbye to everybody. Thank you for joining us. No worries. All right then. Goodbye, everyone. See you soon.